Alright, Mastering Solidworks, Part 5, Using Advanced Specialized Techniques. Chapter 31, Modeling Multi-Bodies. Chapter 32, Working with Surfaces. Chapter 33, Employing Master Metal Techniques. Chapter 34, Using SolidWorks Sheet Metal Tools. Chapter 35, Creating Sheet Metal Drawings. Chapter 36, Creating Weldments and Weldment Drawings. Chapter 37, Using Imported Geometry Direct Editing Techniques. Chapter 38, Using Plastic Features. Chapter 39, Using Mold Tools. Chapter 31, Modeling Multibodies. SolidWorks allows multiple solid bodies within a single part at the same time. SolidWorks defines a solid body as a single continuous volume. So if you have two blocks in the same part, they don't touch one another. These blocks are separate bodies. Separate bodies can intersect, and you can have copies of the bodies that are exactly on top of one another. Surfaces are also bodies, while solid features by default try to form a single body if possible. Surface bodies by default make separate bodies. There are many uses of the type of the functionality. At the same time, there are many ways about the functionality fall into traps. The chapter aims to help you to take advantage of the benefits of the multiple bodies, avoiding some of the potential traps. In this chapter, you will learn to create models responsibly, leverage multi-body techniques, learn how to use multi-bodies, understand the managing bodies, working with multi-body data. You might work with SolidWorks in such a way that you would never need to use the multiple bodies inside a single part ever. Almost everything that average users normally can do can be done with a single solid body per part without any knowledge of the multi-body function whatsoever. However, to access some of the more powerful functions option for more flexibility, multi-body modeling is necessary. If you want to move on surface modeling, multi-body knowledge is mandatory because multi-body is the default in surface modeling. Multi-body modeling is in gateway with the basic solid modeling manually described in this book up to until now into the more advanced functionality that follows. The gateway can lead in two directions. It can lead more power, more flexibility, more options, more advanced functionality, or it can lead to sloppy bad habits and nasty traps. This chapter will help you tell the difference and avoid pitfalls. Using powerful tools effectively. The SolidWorks software is filled with powerful functionality that you will fill in many ways with a given piece of the geometry. SolidWorks geometry itself isn't only the measure of the successful. What is also important is how to arrive at the geometry. This is just because some of the SolidWorks style police pass judgment on your technique, like a panel of judges rating an Olympic driver by using models will be passed on to other people who will need to understand how to get your results because your model will be able to react predictable to changes. It's not always easy to remember how to execute a particular model of 6 months and 100 miles ago. Other users may have to edit your work, and when errors appear, they will appear, and will have to be able to navigate the design intent without destroying the relationship with the feature manager or completely rebuilding it. This is the reason for trying standardized best practice issues, particularly with advanced functionality in a larger organization where users' wide range abilities may work with data. Comparing multi-body modeling with assembly modeling. Multi-body modeling is one of the topics of the bridge of the world of the part of assembly modeling. If you're a new user, you will not understand what the big deal is. After all, you just make bodies within a part, right? By the end of the chapter, you should be able to recognize the issue. But more complicated than that, if you experience the user, you have already run into some of the problems figuring out where to draw the line between the multi-body parts and assemblies. This chapter also offers you some answers. Multi-body modeling is not assembly modeling. Often when new users are introduced to the capabilities of multi-body modeling, the first thought that comes into mind is this is far easier than making assemblies. However, the multi-body modeling shouldn't be treated as a replacement for the assembly modeling. There are particular reasons for the distinction. Several assembly type of functions missing with the more difficult to obtain with the multi-bodies. They include the following: dynamic assembly motion, figures of the separate part with the lead body, command, bounding boxes, separate parts, and cut list items, center of gravity calculation, individual parts, custom property information, individual parts, cut list, properties, mass, property, the calculation, individual cut parts of the ability to save the result of the cut list, property of the sensor. Multi-bodies do not allow segments rebuild with the assembly of the parts. Multi-body troubleshooting of the features failures is far more difficult reusing common used parts, library parts. I believe the distinction between multi-body and assembly modeling techniques should be kept clear as possible, simply because the technique appears easier at first to do, not to make it better. Above all, remember that the modeling multi-body parts puts all data for all the bodies in a single part file. In a single feature manager, there's no easy way to separate the parametric feature for the individual parts, regardless of how complex the part becomes. You may find parallels between making multi-body parts, making virtual components parts of the save as with an assembly file, but both these techniques have the often shortcuts, make some basic task easier if the good reason exists for being mindful of the one part, one file mentality, including the following segments: rebuilds times the ability to rebuild one part instead of several segments of the large data set, being able to work on one part at a time, switching out of parts or using multiple instances of parts, reusing parts, bill of materials, cuts of lists and parts. Further, creating drawings of individual bodies, multi-body is more difficult for the creating drawings of individual parts can be done, but it's more difficult. Also, editing features of the individual bodies isn't as easy with the individual body where an individual part. When you create several bodies within a single part, you constantly have to carry a feature in design intent overhead all the features that you use to create all the bodies to edit in any individual body as alternate. You can use the editing features at the end of the tree. Using multi-body techniques appropriately. You may hear people recommend at the end of the feature manager that only a single solid body should remain, with the rest of the bodies are either consumed or deleted. On either extreme for this, some of the people, anything that you can create is allowable to recommend, but if you decide to use the multi-bodies, you should be at least able to articulate why you have chosen to do so in that way, but it does not sound like you're making excuses for careless work, and ultimately you and your peers will be one of the judges too. Multi-modding is one area of the will induce lots of the judgment with the practices with an example of the technique with the questionability of the practice, best practice with this, but can added some capabilities, some things that you do with multiple bodies. You declare with the multi-body model well then gain certain tools such as cut lists. But if you're doing this for a plastic part, some of the other users may find it confusing, and in many of the opinion they are best served using available tools where are meant to be used. The more people more people who are going to see your models, more orthodox should be with the best practice, especially if other user working with your data is less advanced. Appropriate use of multi-body modeling include, but not limited to, the following as an intermediate step on the way to a single body solid or multiple inserted bodies of the reference. Reference bodies may be deleted at the bottom of the feature manager as over molded parts. As part of the needed to assemble a single smooth shape that is the computer mouse over the automobile body where the shape is impossible, or at least far more difficult if done in context. When the end shape of the finished product is known, but the separation occurs between parts due to the manufacturing method, the materials have not been decided yet. In this case, the multiple body techniques save a lot for the time compared to the modeling assembly. Is inseparable sub-assembly such as the capacitive fastener, SolidWorks weldments resolve the multi-body part. When features require total bodies, such as the indent features, when patterns are better as the body patterns than feature patterns, when molded bodies result with a single multi-body representing the plastic part with the major mold components, calculating volume of the void, cavity, or hollow area. When the volume of the cavity or in the part of the assembly needs to be computed. In administering the SolidWorks installation multiple users, they make looking at the bright line. The test clearly define the user's type of the multi-body modeling allowable, which are not. Some of the many of the possibilities if the difficult to say definitely what really should be done, but there's a short list what you can do to modify your needs. Don't use multi-body modeling simply to avoid making an assembly. Don't leave the part of the multi-body state that should be joined together in a single body. Hiding a body sometimes is appropriate. Deleting the body is sometimes appropriate. Understand the difference. Okay, and the lecture is over. The message you should take of all this, not do with the multi-body techniques just because you can, then using them in solid reason to do so. This is the criteria for the use of the criterion that I use for my own modeling. I would like you to see the models inherit from other SolidWorks users' philosophy that will serve within your consistencies about it. Multi-body modeling is powerful with the complex part with the increase the rapid rebuild speed compared to single body modeling. Assembly modeling, you can develop and use many of the powerful techniques based on the multiple bodies, but I mentioned earlier sometimes you pay the price for a shortcut. Understanding multiple body techniques. Multiple body techniques cover the wide range functionality. Assume that someone creates a list of what you could do with them. Someone else comes up with a new technique. Still, here is a short list of techniques where multi-body function makes things easier than simply because complex shapes across multiple bodies, total tools, bodies, bowling operations, local operations, patterning, simple to very complex parts, as the bridge between solids, undetermined manufacturing method, manipulating imported geometry. In the remainder of the chapter, I will illustrate with the technique, give the example, the model, the discover, the positive, the negative, the deeper of the SolidWorks, you'll find with the more complex function of the company, the deprive the given the feature of the only way to accomplish a particular task, but rebuild slowly, might work with the special conditions, might crash from the time to time, might not make sense to the other users that have the edited it. Use simple method to create multiple bodies. Simple way to create multiple bodies may also help you understand the multiple body models and how they are used. SolidWorks automatically counts the bodies with the solid bodies folder. For the reference, solid and surface bodies folders are shown in Figure 31.3 along with the display pane. To avoid visualization, color transparency, hide show in display mode, extruding multiple loops. If you create two rectangles, open other loops in the sketch of the rectangle that do not touch, overlap, the extrude of those rectangles, you will create a multi-body part. You can also do the same as the two separate features that can be any of the solid features as long as they create two separate volumes to demonstrate the Figure 31.33. Making cuts. You can also take an existing single body with a cut into the solid chunk that remains, making the cut that serve as a single solid with a multiple piece more than two. That's possible. Sometimes you have to watch out because of the maybe not being your intention to cut off a small sliver of materials as you can wind up with multiple bodies by mistake. It's a good idea to keep the eye on the solid bodies folder. Make sure the count does not change unexpectedly. However, when the part only has a single solid body, SolidWorks made it default with the hide of the solid body folder. Using merge option, another easy way to create multiple bodies when you have an existing model to start with the feature connected to the rest of the model the normal way, but the turn off of the merge result in the option is illustrated in 31.2. If you have merge result open, turned on with the two existing bodies, the new feature will merge and the single body with the merge result option is off. The result will be three separate bodies. Solid features have the merge results option turned on by default. The merge results option is available to revolves, lofts, sweeps, and other features to create new solid geometry. Alright, sharing bodies. Bodies can be imported SolidWorks model with a neutral file with the type such as Parasolid, Step, EIGES. SolidWorks has several tools to do this. They all function similar with the subtitle differences. The 6 tools are listed here. Import, export, insert part, insert new part, split, save bodies, delete, keep bodies. These tools overlapping functionality will be described in more detail in Chapter 33, employing master model techniques. For now, it's enough to know that these functions all will enable you to manage SolidWorks. Creating complex shapes across the bodies, creating a part of the show of the, such as the computer mouse, encountering complex shapes of the span with several individual parts, makes most sense of the model to the entire shape of the single part, but then break it into separate bodies, making the parts from the body with the adding detail of the individual pieces apart, bringing the parts together in the assembly. As part of the use of the technique shown in Figure 31.30, the use of the body, moving and copying bodies feature of the moving the bodies within the part simulate with the explode, but although the exploded view can also be used in multi-body parts, the function remains part of the history-based feature in a feature manager when much more liable or more labor-intensive to create an assembly exploded view because each body is moved by a separate feature. 31.3 show the multi-body part with complex shapes across the body, and that's been it showed the little shape things where you put the shape. Part shown in Figure 31.3, if it is not complete with the starting point of each of the part has formed with the part named 2131 multi-body mouse solid part is located in the materials available to download. You might find with the interest to open part to see how it is been modeled from each of the body that is saved with an individual part of the parts complete with the detail of the parts brought back together to create and assemble the separate bodies. And in this case, it was created using a split feature that enables you with the script sketch for the planes to split a single body with multiple bodies described with more detail later in the chapter. The entire process of creating finished assembly finished part with the detail of the Figure 31.4 with the flow chart show the conceptual with the how of the overshape with the created with the single part has moved with a single part with a single body with a single part with the multi-body individual parts of the assembly. Individual parts of the process sometimes called the master model of the workflow from all of the individual parts that are driven in a single master model. Alright, 31.4 shows the master model workflow. And 31.5 of the image of the left depicts the part with the model with the first step with the create with the shape of the single body within the part as shown in Feature Manager. This is all contained with the overall shape of the feature of the folder presented with here with the black box because of the script of the feature with where you've created the part. It really doesn't matter at this point how the part was created. The feature of the discussed with Chapter 32 working with the surfaces. Image of the right in Figure 31.5 show the transparent surface bodies where you've split with the model with a separate body with the split feature shown in the tree. Using the technique you can create with the overall shape of the single piece with the split with a separate part, but you can also apply with the techniques concept for the assembly, but the method is far more direct. To get to the multi-body part created with here, the separate parts of the master model with the function described in detail in Chapter 33, employing master model techniques. 31.5 shows splitting the part into bodies. Using tool bodies and bowling operations, some features require multi-body parts such as the indent and combined feature, among others. Using one body with the creative shape and another with the common use of the bodies with it, and in part with the body finish geometry with the curve of the target, and the body used to create it, edited the shape of the curve of the tool. The indented feature used the tool body. Indent, target body, keeping selection, remove selection, tool body region, cut parameters, so you have your target and your tool. Using indent feature for the indent feature for the cut for the chapter 8, the selected secondary feature before the multi-body was introduced, so fitting into the revisit video can be better understanding the multi-body aspect for this use. The indent feature for the indent for the target body, for the tool body, for the also uses another part with the contact of the assembly of as the tool, the indentation exactly fit in the form of the tool that can be grabbed around the tool, that also control the thickness of the material around the indent with further options, simply cut the target from with the tool instead of the indenting. Figure 31.6 show the target with the transparent with the tool with the occupy. Before or after the indent feature has been applied with the indent, property manager is also shown. Indent feature with the can be problematic feature with the multiple areas and does not part with the doing riveting underside of the target body. None of the property manager in figure 31.6 with the two selection were made with the tool body region selection box. The tool body is selected on either side of the rib bisects of the tool. This concept is not very intuitive. You may have to play with the part with the options to understand what it's doing. So if we look at the indent, target body, keep selection, remove selection, tool body region, cut, parameters, and direction. Keep selection, remove selection, option for the equally unintuitive, but determines the side of the target body. Intent with, for example, the part of the tool body with the outside of the target body with the flat side selected with the inside of the two side of the region, and resolve with the part looks like does in 31.7 where the tool body has been hit, but you can achieve the same result with the toggle with the keep selection and remove the selection options. These options exist because sometimes the difficulty imposed or impossible to select correct area of the body with embedding in another body. Alright, it shows the gray layer and a blue layer going in the lines, and then the two blue boxes bowling together. You the move of the copy of the body's combined feature, the move of the copy of the body combined feature for the demonstrate. You have the same part with the tool body. You have the previous example. The indent with the bottom move of the main body is moved added with the main body example. Figure 31.8 shows the start and the end points of the process as well with the property made for the two features to get you from one point to another. Keep in mind that both move and copy bodies and combined features are history-based features listed in the feature manager. So you have move and copy bodies. Figure 31.8, bodies to move, copy, translate, X, Y, and Z, rotate. Combine, operation, add, subtract, common, bodies to combine, show preview. In this case, move of the copy bodies feature for the distance, the angle of the orange triad. You can also make the move of the locate of the body of the mate, so they enable the locate of the property bodies in a way that is similar to the way that you did in assembly. The combined property manager will notice for the common bowling operations such as the union, add, different, subtract, the intersection common available through the interface. You can use the interesting technique within this part of the feature creating with a smaller tool body with a move copy of the body with a combined feature that can be put together in a folder of the folder itself can be reordered with the shell feature. This means with the combined body and then shelled out where the rib goes down inside it. Outside of it, to produce the old odd air of the message for the unexpectedly placed the shovel feature within the folder. But it does work. You want to open the part and with the Solidworks exactly how all the work is done instead of relying on the figure and illustration. The part using 31.9 with the download material and the name is Chapter 31 Rib Trick Solid Part. 31.9 show the reordering features. Using local operations. If you ever had a modeling situation where you needed to shell off the portion of the part, but the entire part of the fillet would work with a certain geometry, but would not have been able to benefit with the multi-body technique with accomplished for these tasks. Alright, it shows a twisted torsion torso. The flex feature part shown in the figure 31.10 first appeared in chapter 8 selecting section for secondary features. Demonstrated the flex feature of the rubber plug with the electric device in order to make one side of the part flex without flexing to the other side of the multi-bodies where the part was split into two bodies using the split feature in a plane. One side of the part was then twisted into two bodies were recombined with the feature contained with the feature that were used to build the original part of geometry which could easily have been either native or imported. 3110 show the splitting of the part with the perform a local operation. Alright, then the shell feature. The shell feature hollows out with the solid body time. At a time, remove the selected faces. If the multi-sided solid bodies, you must select the one to be shelled. You can select the body without setting of the face of the using the small body in selection of the body with the under the large face with the remove the selection box. In Property Manager, if you do not select any place to rebuild the body is hollow with no external indication from the part with the hollow. Unless the view in the section view of the transparent view, wireframe view, single multiple face can be removed. The feature works from the offsetting the face to the outside of the model, but the feature may fail. They cover the problem of the internal geometry. The multi-thickness shell, but the option enables you to select the face with a different thickness for the overall shell thickness. This is one method to sometimes restrict the scope of the shell feature for a certain area of the body with the multi-thickness for the shell, but there's somewhat limited to the face with a different thickness for the not shell, but the tangent for the nearly tangent for the two and one another. Best shell features works only on one body at a time. Splitting the part with the body, multi-bodies can be effective way to limit the scope of the feature of the part. Shown in Figure 31. 11 of them have been split in half, and one half has been made transparent for visualization purposes. As a result, you can see the part is shelled at the bottom on the one end and on the top of the other, and the shell feature is no option doing this existing geometry. The only way you can do this is either through the feature order or by using multiple bodies. You can find the part in shown Figure 31.9 and the download material to name 31 local ops shell solid part. To shell the part of the sway with the feature over the create one block shell, then create with the other block and shell with that. And the order of the technique of the work with the second shell must be bigger than the bigger than the first shell. If it's smaller, then it will and may hollow out areas that aren't intended to hollow. To shell with the multiple bodies, you can use the two methods. One method to build the first block and then build the second block built to turn on with the merge option. But turn off the merge option and create the bodies that are side by side. Then the shell with the one block on the bottom and the other on the top is avoid the double thickness of the wall between them. The end of the face can be removed along with either top of the bottom face. If you add the part, you may notice that one of the shell features have two faces removed. Second method is build a single block with a split using a sketch line plane or in a surface plate proceeded in the same way as the first method. Patterning. Patterning of body with a faster problem for the commonly used the alternative of the patterning feature for the Chapter 9 patterning and mirroring. Discover the feature of the patterning and mirroring. Example, the least part of the how different the part of the times effect of the model rebuild speeds. Appropriate pattern bodies can also be a big rebuild time. Say for the partner patterning body, none of the parametric with intelligence pattern with it must enter the entire body with another odd thing of the body with the patterning body in SolidWorks. If there's an option to merge the body, either one and another the main body that require the extra step involved with the adding of the combined feature of the mirror of the same. Except the option with the merge bodies with the button only the merge of the original body with the mirror body, but it does not merge either with the original or other mirror body and central main body. An example, as an imported feature for the feature needs to be reused the bottom of the part of the technique used here to split away the feature separated the bottom pattern of the body of the part with the around the part joined along the back together. This function can be used with the native geometry as well as imported the process shown in Figure 3112. Functions use a similar planar surface. The planar could be used off the body with the pattern with the plane. Would have also split with the globe at the top of the planar surface, which could be limited in the extent of the plane cannot be reused. Image to the left, Figure 3112 shows the raw imported part. The middle image shows a planar surface created with the face of the part with the planar surface that has been used when split feature cut leg of the part with the image of the right shows the split leg pattern around the axis created with the intersection of the two planes. Alright, splitting away a body and patterning it. We see we've taken the part, we've split the surface, we've taken the axis, and if you want to practice this problem, the download material Chapter 31 imported parasolid and named Chapter 31 pattern import.x_t. Performance in some situation, patterning bound with the performance advantage with some situation of this and giving advantage with the pattern bound with the geometry created with the pattern. See with the complexity of many feature that does not work as well at all the feature pattern with it. On the other hand, you read the experiment with the Chapter 9 patterning mirroring use the small body of the whole instead of the patterning the whole feature. You will find the body pattern is far slower than feature patterning because of the necessary step of the combining bodies. Simplifying very complex parts. Sometimes the very complex parts work to get better than when they're built in section separate parts than when they built within single feature for the tree. If something can rebuild with the part with the hundreds features enables you to manage the much of the tree with the willing to rebuild at one time with the example to demonstrate the technique of a large plastic part built entirely from ribs making the little hundreds of solid bodies as shown in Figure 3113. A complex model created with separate parts and brought together in single bodies in a single part. The rebuild time for the model that can be easier with the shuffle menu of the feature count with it being 100, in this case, well over the 100 with the minimum of the rebuild time of the different workflow established with this part. First, a major inside-outside places work with create with the serve with the next serve with the word save with and several of the other parts. Each of these parts representation of a portion of the mold. All enough of the information exists for the master model to align with the feature for each of the part. Ribs on the part were created, making a single extrude. The rib feature cannot be viewed with the weak of the nose geometry with the serve of the boundary with the ribs. Then extrusion where pattern was mirrored after all the ribs were created, then had to be shaped. So the surface on the master model were used to cut the ribs to shape. The ribs could not be extruded with the draft with the fillets because of the outer and inner surface non-painting with the draft had to be rebuilt with a parting line draft with the same read with the fillets had to be applied with after the draft. Further draft and fillets can be only be applied to a single body at a time as a result. Separate the draft feature for the separate of the fillet feature had to be applied to each body. Each rib was separate bodies. After the draft and fillets were applied, bodies were joined in single body. Recognized that the description of how I made the part with a lot of copper hand to the point is not to show the detail of the parts of the rib belt, but to demonstrate how you can get a part with 12,000 features or more precisely on the part with the level of complexity you need to think of the modeling of the part with a modular fashion. Building each of the part with a separate will bring each of the separate section of the part together in individual bodies. Figure 3113 shows the two separate pull directions part with the separated from one another the same way with the balance part with the explode with the previous example. Here the frame of the model with the separate part with the because it is intimately related to the other parts with it easily separated out. After this completed, each of the directions separate part of the put together the body with a single part of the and joined together with the combined feature that have all those features separate parts, allowing the segment to rebuild with the opposite of the rebuilding all the parts of the assembly in a single part with a simple command bound of the rebuild time. This is probably a technique that you won't use very often, but when you do, save lots of the rebuild time. You the end of the model takes over the 20 and 30 seconds to rebuild. I know that I'm going to do lots of the work, and it must be also lend itself to the segment in the way of the one did easily definable areas. Bridging between solids, often modeling with you build what you know and filling as you go. For example, with the wood modeling with the duct between the connections as well as defined with the duct between is defined only by the ends in which must exit first. Another example of connecting the rod where the known the diameter each of the nib of the distance between the ends of the connection between their secondary importance. Figure 31/14 of the connection rod made with it in this way, but in this case the bearing seat at one end was created, on the other end was created with a copy of the body of the first one. From there, linking between the bearing seats was created that would join the separate body together in a single body solid part. The part contains some of the interesting features. The first of the thin feature extrude that used to make the first bearing seat that is combined with the mid plane with the extrude make it symmetrically with the same time. This comes with the move of the copy body feature for the copy of the body in the same way with the feature previous example to move of the body of the next activity you would extrude from the option of the extrude from the face, then you have the end of the condition up to the next, which with the end of the feature neatly with all the part also incorporates fillets, use of faces, features to form and selection. If you aren't familiar with these options, I recommend that you open the part with the download materials, look at it in single part and simple part with the take advantage of the nice, simple, productive, enhancing option that have been available to sometime the Solidworks software. The part name Solid1, part name, file name, chapter 31, bridge, solid part. Alright, there shows a connection rod. And I plan on building one of these. So, you use the extrude surface with the surface of the direction. Merge resolve the direction, select the contour and selected bodies and chamfer. By default, select the solid feature of the head of the merge option, select with the automatically combine with any of the method of the touch. At the same time, it does display air of the merge option and select with the new body that does not touch existing bodies. Modeling undetermined manufacturer methods. Sometimes you must start with the design before you know exactly how to predict the exactly how the product will be manufactured. In this example of the part geometry finished part with exist first, if there's broken up the manufacturable parts, the initial model shown in the image of the top of the figure 3115 is created with a single part with the result of the input of the marketing, but when it comes to the time of the manufacturing input of the part count with the process of the keep and chain of the parts, break of another form, another keep the change as well with the kind of changing on the have to have the parts created the individual part, big liability, have the difficult to changing which bodies are part merged together and much easier. It's worth mentioning two potential difficulties you may run into the methods like the first view you have of the making the drawings from the parts that have been derived from the bodies in a single part of the force of the reference dimension scheme of the dimension parts recover the feature dimension does not survive being moved with the multi-body part. This may or may not be an issue depending on how people are doing the drawings as accustomed to work. So there's a connection rod. 3115 show the towel rack model with a single part with the broken individual parts in assembly. Second potential issue with the situation, multi-body incident with the pub, with the has-been, and with the model, with the motors, with the towel rack, with the figure 3115, several final, with the space, with the rail, with the other parts, are duplicated model techniques doing off of the way of dealing with this require the more manual assembly modeling. You may assemble the directable, the multi-body part may need multiple instances of the particular parts you need to do this manually rather than automatically. Applying the feature scope of this body. Feature scope of this panel with the feature that creates the solid body, but it appears when the multi-bodies are in part within the same with the feature scope of the assembly with the feature of the function. A similar way within assemblies. Feature scope identifies whether the parts are affected with the current assembly feature of the part for the apply with the bodies that can be used for features to add the material as well with the feature of the remove the material assembly feature for the only remove the material. The feature scope is a way to merge the results option more selectively. The merge result of the option default doesn't discriminate. It calls the feature to merge with any of the unsolid body with the touch of the feature enabled to do with the select with the bodies to merge with the others. Wise effect of the feature scope to apply with additional feature for the types of the such for the cuts of the feature scope becomes available to the property manager whenever the part of the multi-body with an eligible feature use. Feature scope of the panel shown figure 3114. The default setting of the feature scope of the selected body with the option over the auto select option for the auto bodies. Option essentially the same as the merger result. The option select the body option select with the auto select with the unselected. You must select the bodies of the current feature to affect them. No bodies with added with the bottom of the non-automatic added to the list. When you need the normally edit the feature with additional bodies to the list of the appropriate. Alright, then it shows the rib feature. The rib feature, you have the hypersensitive change with the number of the bodies. When the number of the bodies change, the more or fewer bodies with the rib features would fail. With more or fewer bodies, any rib feature would fail. The bug has been fixed in recent versions. However, that would be aware that using older works and Solidworks reordering and rolling back to either add or remove bodies will cause the selection in which the body is affected will fail. Alright, it shows your cube with the X's on it and then a check mark. Using and deleting keeping bodies feature prior to the 2015 Solidworks delete keep bodies feature we use to be keep the simply deep what used to completely called simply delete bodies. But depending on how you toggle the delete and keep option, the feature will keep the selected body but delete the rest. It will delete the selected body but then keep the rest. Depending on how the feature function as deep deeper keep the ink icon feature manager will change the will when works with the delete bodies. The block will have the X lower right corner of the function keep bodies will have the checkpoint of the property manager of the delete keep body of the shown figure 3116. Delete keep bodies, type of the keep bodies, the bodies to keep. Alright, show the two parts, two little split feature managing bodies and split feature for the split feature is essentially with three functions, split single body, multi-body, solid bodies, using a planar sketch layer for the bodies, save the individual solid bodies, the individual part file, the reassemble the individual parts, save the assembly where the part are, all positions same relative position, corresponding bodies. The part of split feature for the relay for the chapter of the first function mentioned, which of the split single solid body of the multi-body with the use the sketch of the plane, the surface of the body. Split feature cannot be with the split surface of the body, but in fact with nothing then Solidworks can split surface of the bodies. Only solid bodies can be split. Surface of the bodies can only be trimmed so the effective work around them not being able to do split surface of the bodies to copy the body with the trim. Keep one side of the copy and the other side of the original. This seems to like functionality oversight would make it a great enhancement request if you could across the need for this functionality. Alright, splitting with a sketch. When you use the sketch with a split single body with the multi-body with a split process works like creating a sketch with an open and closed loop, even with a mixture of the open and closed profiles will work to open the endpoint with the moss with the exterior of the edge hanging out with its space that cannot actually be inside of the boundaries of the south. One restriction is sketch can be already used with another feature. Initiate the split feature with the feature of the toolbar from the menu with the choosing insert feature split, but you can do the sketch activity with the sketch inactive with the button with the selected but not selected all. Click with the cut bodies function that does not actually get anything with the only preview for the split when it's done with the resolving bodies appear in the window below with the call out flags in place with the parts of the graphic window. Figure 31 something show the property manager in preview. Check marks next to the body of the list to indicate the body will be saved with the external file with the auto assign name of the button will make the software assign file names to all of the bodies prior to saving them with external files using the template information on the bottom of the property manager. Consume cut bodies option removed and consumes any of the bodies that have a check mark. Splitting with a plane. Splitting with a plane provides the same type of the result with the same option for splitting with the sketch. However, the need to have the worry about the plane being extended far beyond enough because the cut is made with an infinite extension of the plane. The only thing you have to worry about with the plane is whether they intersect the part. Splitting the surface body. Surface body is either to split the body with a couple of the reasons the part shown. Figure 3112 of the surface body was either to make a split instead of the sketch of the plane. Because both of the entities split everything in an instant with the default with the normal to the sketch plane with the selected plane. The surface body is only split with the extent of the splitting surface body. If you look closely at the part, you notice that the plane and sketch will loop off on one side over the sphere on the top of the object, but the small planar surface is limited with enough to the side of the split only what is necessary. Another advantage of the surface body isn't limited to the two-dimensional cut of the surface itself. It can be the type of the surface of such a planar extended, extruded, revolved, lofted, and imported. Taken a step further, where the surface is limited to being a single face of the body. The result of a single feature can be made with the double feature of the put together, as long as the single body and all the other edges of the softer body of the outside of the solid body. Examine the mouse part shown in figure 31.3. You can see that the splits have been made with the multi-feature surface bodies. I mentioned splitting surface bodies because of which I discussed the splitting function. Even if I haven't covered the surface effects functions yet, it may be useful to read part of the book out of the order to give how the topics interrelate and possible to order them in such a way that some sections don't refer to a topic that hasn't been covered. Alright, shows the file turned into a subassembly icon. Adding bodies used to insert the part of the feature. Insert button can be found with the feature toolbar. You can access the feature by the choosing the insert part of the menus. Insert part enables you to insert the one part with another. When insert the part, you have the option to insert the solid body, the axis plane with the cosmetic thread, surface bodies, and some of the other type of entities, including sketch of the feature property manager interface with the insert part of the feature shown figure 3118. When using insert part, there is no insert part feature that comes with a part of the tree. The insert part icon should be the name of the part of the being inserted with the feature. Notice that the basket part shown figure 3113 also use the insert part of the put together by to form a finished part. So we're using insert part manager. Working with secondary operations. One of the commonly used techniques have to do with secondary operation. For example, they have the design cap the needs of the several machining operations after it comes to the foundry. Foundry needs the drawing to produce the raw casting. Machine shop needs the different drawing of the tape, the hole, the spot faces, the area with the trim, the flash, and so on. You can use the configuration by either the insert part another way with nothing to do with the multi-body technique. So one play with the book of the insert part with the cover with a much detail. One advantage for the insert part with no longer carry with over the overhead of all the feature of the apparent part. Also, if the inserted part were of the imported configuration methods for the force with carry around much more feature overhead, of course, with the downside of the now with the additional file with the manage. But it can be advantaged because of many of the companies assign the different part number of the parts before and after the secondary operation. Starting point, looking back at the mouse shown figure 31.3 with the main part with the splitting the several bodies, you can insert the part with the whole mount with the new part with the bodies except one deleted. The new remaining bodies for the starting point with the new part, many with additional feature for this need with the body, with the makeup of the mount, such as the assembly feature for the cosmetic feature, functionality feature, manufacturing features. Alright, shows the intersection through plane intersection through a block. Using insert modified bodies. Insert combines capability several surface with solid body tools and combined with a split cut with surface cut and trim net thicken in figure 32 working with the surface will take another feature with it and because it is uses surface of the chapter we'll just look at the capability of solids. Intersects can use the solid bodies for the body planes as input, but the output will be a number of solids or surface bodies based on the input of the feature interface to show the possible outcomes you select with the body region that you want to keep. Figure 3119 show the feature of the action of the block centered on the origin sphere should inside of the block is also centered on the origin. And that's your intersection selections, regions to exclude, options, merge result, consume surface. In the example, the surface of the sphere is removed with the block which is split on the top of the front plane with creating with the four possible solid regions, excluding the sphere with the one solid region feature produced with the result shown with the right. Tool combined with the existing solid for the functionality of the feature for the trim and the combined with the cut with the surface and knit. It's useful replacing many combined adding feature for the part and part printing with the most combined with anything that is possible. Combining add outputs with one body intersecting can output multi-bodies. Also the useful creating volume with the internal cavities without modifying with the surrounding bodies. Managing bodies. Managing bodies solid work isn't the cleaning job of the managing parts of the assembly. As you work with bodies, you might discover some pride with how many managed bodies are managed. Body naming and merge splits issued among some of the behaviors you will have to learn to deal with this. Section prepares you the challenge involved with managing bodies in SolidWorks. Using the bodies folder, the top of the feature manager included a pair of the folders, one called solid bodies, the other was called surface bodies, which only exists if you have multi-solid bodies or any surface bodies. They reflect the shape of the model with the current position of the rollback bar with the result. Folders change and give the disappear with the roll of the tree back further. In the history of Figure 3020, show the top of the feature manager of the both has both the solid and surface body view folders. Note that the number of the parentheses after the name of the folder shows how many bodies are in the particular folder. Yes. And an odd fact of the folder, if you allowed to rename the folder, but the name changes but never remain. If you go back to rename the folder again, the name will probably previously assigned with the display. You may encounter another problem with displaying feature manager header items. They are automatic display when the display only when they're containing something. Automatic setting the feature manager folder display with the works incorrectly from time to time when they reach for the suggest the show option to display important features. Folders, Figure 3121 show the option page tools option feature manager controls the visibility of folders. You go to system option feature manager and show the different folders features. By right-clicking either the body folders, you can select the show feature history options, which show the feature for the combined with the create with the bodies, and then with the list under the body name of the view feature manager shown the 3122 option is very useful, which are editing troubleshooting bodies. Figure 3122 also show the other option with the right mouse button menu, although the body of the folder can be alternately shown and hidden from the menu, as well as deleted, although hide and show the state of the body doesn't create a history-based feature from the tree. The delete feature does discussed previously. Expand the display pane as part of the showing the display information from the body. See with the Figure 3123 the display showing show the colors assigned with the solid bodies as well with the fact that several scripted bodies exist but are hidden. The folder and body is easy to identify, especially with the combined setting with the tools option display section of the dynamic highlight from graphic view, which setting with a quickly turn to the body outline red with the move of the mouse over the body in the body folder. Hiding and showing bodies. You can hide and show the bodies in several ways are already discovered. The method view of the body folders hide and show all of the bodies at once. You can also right click individually by to hide and show them. You have the right menu mouse button menu. Remember that the contact for the bars you have an option. You have the right menu mouse button menu. Also with the left click section I include the context bar option with the right mouse button menu generically. If you can see the body in the graphic area, you can right click on the body and select hide under the body heading. Usually this works with both solids and surfaces. Display pane shown on the right of the feature manager 3123 can also be used to hide and show bodies. Chain of the both transparency appearance chain with the display mode of the bodies. Display pane is handy tool visual options. When you're hiding and showing the body with the feature manager but not use the bodies and folder, you use the features themselves instead of they get a little complicated if you want. Hide or show a solid body, you can always use the feature of the parent of the body to hide or show the body. For example, you can show shell feature in the mouse model to hide and show all the bodies with which its parent. Other facts that you need to know about the bodies and hide and show the states are the right and that hide and show feature of the both configurable and dependent on the rollback state. As a result of the hide body and then the rollback may appear again, then you'll have to hide it again. Then if you roll back and the state changes again, also a body can be hidden on one configuration. When you switch configuration remains hidden, all unwritten rules make it rather frustrating at times to work with a display or the bodies. Display state functionality, model body parts, extremely handy, a very fast way to change the color transparency display modes of the individual bodies. The best way to handle this, extend the display plan. Extend the display plan, control hide or show the display mode, appearance and transparency directly display pane. Figure 3124 show the display pane in action multi-body part. Alright. Figure 3124 with the feature panel split with the C with the configuration display state information alongside both folders and display pane with the family familiar with the display state, assembly same for the bodies. You can assign the different material with each of the body, different materials on different parts are made of the different parts of the thing, and only situation which can model with the way with the overall models where the multiple material with the modeled onto one another the inseparable assembly like purchase of the components such as screws, the captive washers or circuit boards with rivets to tip of the ply with the materials to the body with the right click with the body with the solid bodies folder, select material. Alright, show the eye and it goes back from blue part to a gray part or shade. Another tool is Solidworks to show hidden bodies. It works assembly equivalent to show hidden components. In part of the hidden bodies, right-click over the empty space in the graphic window, show the hidden body of the interface shown in Figure 3125. Displayed visible will become hidden, and the hidden will become visible in command using a special cursor. Tools come in handy with a complex design situation when you have a large number of bodies and where you simply need the visualization of existing bodies that are not shown. So Figure 3125 shows hidden bodies interface cursor. For fast, solid or surface body visibility, change use these shortcuts. Tab of the cursor over the body with the graphics window will hide. Shift tab of the cursor hidden body will show the body that works best. One with the preview technique, selecting the body with the bodies fold with the control shift tab. Control shift tab previews all hidden bodies, changing with the temporarily shown with the bodies that show the selected bodies. Selecting hidden bodies, solid surface bodies folders, preview these bodies there. Use until they are unselected. You press the shift tab of the cursor over any of the body until they show the body. Use the tab shift tab, the control shift tab shortcuts hide show bodies. Caution: some features include bodies in the body hidden with the edit feature. Be careful of this. Be sure to show all bodies that use the particular function before you edit it. For example, the body is hidden. You create an new extrude so the touch of the hidden body with the new body won't merge with the hidden one, even with the merge option is on. If the hidden body is then shown, then you can edit the second body of the bodies will merge open upon closing the second body. Alright, show a body with an X on it. Deleting bodies. If you already mentioned you can delete bodies using a delete and keep bodies feature of the feature that exists on the tree. But the part of the feature previously was called delete bodies. Delete and keep bodies doesn't affect the file size or rebuild speed. In fact, I find it difficult to come up with some example of which you use the throwaway the body somehow remains in the part. Some people use the feature to clean up the organizational tree. However, all does beyond hiding bodies to make them inaccessible without rolling back the editing feature of the other. Then user insists on the keeping of the tree extraneous bodies immediately deletes the body that have been used. To me, this technique replaces one kind of clutter with another into another means that the tools should have been available to you. Solid surface bodies aren't available unless you reorder the delete body feature down to the tree and roll back. In any case, this is really a matter of personal working style and not any great importance. Some export file types will export all bodies without warning. This is the easiest way to make sure that the file does not have extra bodies for export. To just add a delete body feature that removes the extraneous body that are included in the final part. Also, always re-import any exported data to make sure they export work correctly. Tip: deleting unnecessary bodies directly reduce the number of graphic triangles your large assemblies will thank you. Renaming bodies. None of the bodies that you see with the folder that have been named unless the feature of the touch for the given body. This means the bodies keep the chain of the names deliberately with the rename of the body of the rename, so that you give it through the feature chain that you should follow the same rules, naming the bodies as you do in the name of the feature necessary with the rename every of the body, but you will one body frequently. You need to select the feature manager renaming it very useful. Tutorials working with multi-body. The section contains very short example of multi-body techniques in order to easily move the more difficult merging local operation. The tutorial gives you some of the experience with the merge resolve the option features on the individual body for the demonstration of the local operation functionality, multi-body modeling, trialing these steps. Start with the new part with a sketch for the rectangle, the center of the origin on the top plane, make with the rectangle at any size you like. Extrude the rectangle roughly 1/3 of the small distance, smaller of the small dimension. Open a second sketch on the top plane, hide the first solid body with the right click and into the either's feature with the graphic window. Show the sketch on the first feature for the draw of the second rectangle over the far side of the rectangle of the origin. Make sure the second rectangular two coincide the relationship of the first sketch for the two corners of the rectangle are the same width. When the sketch is complete, hide the sketch as shown. Extrude the second rectangle to about 2/3 of the depth of the first rectangle. Notice that the merge option for the chain with the default element is on. For the second extrude, because the first extrude was hidden, the second extrude did not merge with it. Be careful the subsequent edits for either feature for the first body is shown because of the main cause of the bodies to merge unexpectedly. In the tutorial, the bodies are later merged intentionally and ideally show they deselect the merge option with the second extrude. Shell out the second extrusion, then remove the two adjacent sides, shown in Figure 126.1 with the sides on the top of the other shared side with the hidden body with the body that show the hidden at this point, shown with the transparent image of the reference. Only the body was made transparent to make easier to select the face of the second body. 3126 shows two shelling two blocks. Or 7, the first body, either the solid bodies folder or the top of the tree from the right mouse button for each First solid feature for the tree with a shelf at the bottom of this first side with a cavity with the two body with the opposite side. Combine the two body with the combine tool with the fine with the choosing insert for the feature with the combine with the features available with the right menu mouse button in the solid body. Folder slowly add options select with the two body with the click OK to finish for the feature for figure 3120 with the go to the finished part. Splitting and parting bodies. The tutorial gives you the step-by-step of the delete a panel of the feature for the imported body with a sub. Write one of the features panel with a different number of the feature for the introduce the simple surface function of the preparation with the chapter 32. Working with surfaces, follow these steps. Open the parasite slide. File with the download materials chapter 31 bonding T and tutorial X done your /T. Using sex selection feature with the selection filter to set the face for the section. Difficult hotkey is for this X and select all the faces of the legs. You can use the window selection techniques to avoid clicking each face. Click the delete face button with the surface toolbar. Access the command by for the interface. Insert face delete for the menus. Make sure the delete and patch option is selected. Select the face property of your manager and should look like a figure 3128. Click OK to accept the feature. Repeat the process. Second leg, leave the third leg with separate with the rest of the part with the pattern. After two legs have been removed, click on the outer part of the main cylindrical surface and then choose the insert surface offset of the menu. Set the offset distance to 0, and if the surface bodies folders are now added to the tree near the top, the 0 distance offset surface is frequently used to copy faces. How to hide the solid body. You can do the solid bodies folder from the feature manager with the graphic window with hiding the solid body for the offset surface. Then should be 3 holes into it. Select one into the hole indicated with the figure 3129. Delete key with the truth with another dialog box will appear. Select the delete hole option rather than delete feature option. The delete hole operation becomes a history-based feature in the model of the tree. Before moving to the next step, remember that you need to turn off the selection feature on the faces. No, delete a hole really is a hidden functionality with the surface feature with the untrim and the untrim is discussed in chapter 32 working with the surfaces, but you can use the restore of the original boundaries to the surface. After you delete the hole of the surface body, change the colors of the surface body with the same way with the change of the colors of the parts and face and feature. Change the surface bodies fold with either part with the delete key with the delete body with the right menu mouse button. Click OK to accept the feature place the delete body and the feature of the tree will keep the body with the getting in the way isn't needed. If the necessary step of the maybe to people choose to do it and suppress the delete body feature will cover the body is needed again and later is needed again later. If the deleted body is in this way, the needed later down the tree, you can delete it, roll back the suppress and reorder the delete body feature later in the tree. Now, show the solid body, you know if the color of the surface conflicts with the color of the solid. This model appears to do with the small approximations made by the rendering and the display of the algorithms. Initiate the split feature for the choosing in features. Insert feature split for the menu. The click on the features toolbar. Surface model with the split with the tool solid body. Click the cut part with the button. Select the check box with the front with the both body. Then select the click OK to accept the feature. Notice that now the solid bodies feature indicates that there are two selected bodies. From the view menu, select the display with the temporary axis. Initiate the circle pattern feature for selecting the temporary axis. The axis split off legs of the body through the pattern selection box is set for the 4 inches shown figure 3130. Use the combine feature to add the together 5 bodies. Access the feature by choosing insert feature for combine with the menus. Alright, the bottom line. Beginning to understand the work for the multi-body Solidworks room opens for the gateway to the world model possibilities. Like in context, design model multi-body modeling is definitely something you have to go into with your own eyes open. You'll experience the different difficulties when you use the technique, but also with the new possibilities available with the other techniques. The key success of the multi-body techniques understand the capability limitation of the tool. When you use the model multi-body approach, make sure they identify the reason for doing it rather than more convenient or conventional approach. Also keep it in mind that the list of the application multi-body modeling mentioned in this chapter for some types of work with except for the SolidWorks model tools, elements cannot be avoided multi-body modeling. Master, use the following methods to create multi-bodies in part: multi-body closed loop, single extruded feature, multi-disjoint feature, different types with a single part, creating 2 solid features merged to create a single body, then turning off the merge and result option, second feature to create a second body. Cut feature has separation, single body into multi-bodies, splitting a single body with a plane. Master, using one or more of the models created, then practice exercise using the right mouse menu tools from the body's folder. Display the pane to perform the following functions: body level geometry, hide and show, rename, change color, apply material, change display state, making the body transparent. Master it. Start one of the parts you create with the first exercise. Insert the part with the pull one of the other multi-bodies into the current one. Then use the insert new part with the push for the current part into the new part. Notice how all the parts are listed and the bodies when treated in this way. Next, you combine them, merge any of the bodies without touching. And now we're moving on to Chapter 32, Working with Surfaces.